Welcome to MediaMelanieTV. I'm Melanie, and today I'm back to talk about Dexter Resurrection on Paramount Plus with Showtime. That's right, Dexter is resurrected. In fact, we heard the word resurrection twice within these first couple of episodes. First from John Lithgow, who said you need to go through hell in order to be resurrected, and then from Angel, who literally resurrected Dexter by legally bringing him back to life, probably so he can end up pressing charges against him once he finally puts the nail in the coffin and finds out and prosecutes Dexter for being the Bay Harbor Butcher. Now, he's got plenty of suspicions. He's heard it from other people. He knows Dexter changed his literal identity. It was a pretty dramatic scene when, after Dexter had woken up from the coma, that he was actually able to escape from Angel. So even though I don't necessarily buy that could have happened in the state that he was in after being in a 10-week coma, it obviously had to happen to get him to New York. And speaking of the coma situation, I will say I gave a little bit of side eye to the literal parade of OG Dexter cast members. Now, I'm not saying I did not enjoy seeing John Lithgow, who of course played the Trinity Killer, which is going to be another spin-off. Jimmy Smits as Miguel Prado. We saw some gravestones, although I've got to say I wouldn't have minded seeing Maria LaGuardia there. And also Hannah. I know Yvonne Strahovski is busy. She's coming off The Handmaid's Tale, involved with the Testaments, but I really enjoyed her character and wouldn't have minded seeing her haunting Dexter as well. We also saw Dokes, which was very cool. I love the nostalgia of seeing these characters. I didn't necessarily buy that Dokes was encouraging Dexter to wake up so he could go and be a dad to Harrison. Don't necessarily think that's in his character DNA, especially given what transpired between him and Dexter and how he ended up dying. So today, I'm going to get into episode 1, A Beating Heart, and episode 2, Camera Shy. The description for episode 1 reads, Dexter Morgan awakens from a 10-week coma as he begins a painful recovery and learns Harrison has fled to New York City. Both father and son are drawn closer to confronting the darkness they've tried to escape. Episode 2, Dexter embeds himself in New York's rideshare community to track down a serial killer. Meanwhile, Harrison spirals from the guilt of a violent outburst. Now, if I'm getting into an initial reaction about something I didn't love about this episode, it is so much Harrison. I understand they're going to have to resolve what happened between father and son last season. Harrison obviously shot him, left him for dead. Dexter miraculously survived. I wouldn't have minded a little bit more build up on the Dexter end versus so much Harrison. But that also begs the question. When Dexter and Harrison finally do reunite, are they going to work together? Or will that be a boundary that Dexter won't cross? We had Ghost Deb at one point saying, hey, you need to not be telling him all of this stuff yet. Dexter persisted and told him anyway. It's hard to say whether or not Harrison still would have gone down this path if Dexter hadn't opened up to him, or because he was also born in blood like father, like son, was he bound to be cursed with this generational trauma anyway? It doesn't really matter because at this point, they are both going to be killing people here in New York City. So yeah, Harrison, not my favorite. Give me more Dexter. Could not be more excited to get to the list of stars in this season. Fortunately, we got Uma Thurman right off the bat, and she did not disappoint. I am a big Uma Thurman fan. She's working for Leon Prater, who is going to be collecting serial killers and creating this big network, which eventually Dexter is going to become a part of. But seriously, we've got Krysten Ritter, Neil Patrick Harris, David Dastmalchian, Peter Dinklage, Eric Stonestreet. We've already seen John Lithgow, Jimmy Smits, and I wasn't familiar with the actress who is playing the police officer, but I love her character. She's a little bit quirky, a little bit unconventional. I love her mannerisms, the way she speaks, the way she talks to other people. And this is an officer or detective that I'm not going to mind seeing also engaging in this cat and mouse game. And I do wonder if she and Angel will end up connecting and working together to track Dexter Morgan. And that actress's name, by the way, is Kadaya Sarif. We've also already seen Mark Menchaca, who is playing the serial killer that Dexter is chasing. Of course, he's named the Dark Passenger. Ironic, right? What are the odds? And I actually really love the fact that he's out there doing the whole rideshare killing thing, and that hood with the LED lights in it just visually comes across really cool on screen. All right, before we get more into this reaction and review of Dexter Resurrection, go ahead and like this video and hit that subscribe button. I'm gonna be here every week with reactions and reviews, and I would love for you to join me. You could be my dark passenger or light passenger because you're probably not a killer, right? And I've got to say, out of all the guest stars lined up, Neil Patrick Harris is my number one. I might be dating myself here, but when I was younger, I actually had a Doogie Howser poster up on my wall. That was probably one of the first medical shows that I loved when I was younger, of course, before ER came along. And by the way, speaking of medical shows, The Pit, best medical drama of all time. Can't wait for that show to take all the Emmys. But I think overall, these first 2 episodes were pretty decent. It took me a little bit to get into Dexter Original Sin, and that may be the case here for me to get fully vested, but I do think once we get into the serial killer collector and all of these guest stars, it's gonna be a wild ride, and I literally cannot wait. Something else I also appreciated was the robust recap they gave us at the beginning to refresh all of our memories, especially because it has been a little bit of time since we've seen New Blood, and obviously a long time since we've seen the original Dexter. Even though I had gone back and watched the end of New Blood again, I think for those viewers who haven't, that is going to be something very appreciated. I also can't wait for him to get into the killing. But I do wonder if he is growing, perhaps maturing from his earlier days of killing. As Harry said, at one point, Dexter saved somebody. And that is definitely a departure from the Dexter we've seen before. I also want to mention, it's nice having Harry back. I love James Remar. And it also gives a little bit of credence to the casting of Christian Slater as a young Harry in Dexter Original Sin. I completely buy him as a young Harry. I'm glad we're getting the familiarity back of Dexter having somebody that he can talk to, even if it is a ghost, someone he can confide in, and someone that's going to be his moral compass as he was in the original Dexter. There are definitely some silly things. The fact that he's able to just stroll through this hotel to get a better idea of the crime that Harrison committed, like nobody's noticing this man walking through after a crime has been committed there. It does seem like Harrison will be under suspicion pretty quickly given the way the officers looked at him when they were at the hotel investigating. But I do appreciate at least that Harrison is following in Dexter's footsteps in one way. Not that I condone violence whatsoever, but at least he's approaching it as being a vigilante and only killing bad guys. He did kill somebody who's not necessarily a killer, but instead preys on women. Good for him. Even though he killed somebody, it was a bad guy, and a very bad one at that, who's probably done this sort of thing before. But again, one of my biggest complaints is just so much Harrison. I would prefer the focus to be solely on Dexter and how he's going to be going up against all of these other serial killers. The momentum was pretty good in these 2 episodes, though. I mean, Dexter was able to wake up from the 10-week coma, get to New York City, identify the serial killer on the loose, and successfully start tracking him. One of my favorite parts of the original Dexter was the process. Dexter doing the stalking, laying the plan, hearing that voice in his head, justifying the choice that he would eventually make to get his victims on his table. And also, how convenient was it that Dexter's able to just secure a department from the rideshare driver who fills him in on some of the details of the killer of the other rideshare drivers? So yeah, there were those couple of things, but again, I'm willing to brush that aside because it did help the momentum, whereas in some of these first couple episodes of shows, I feel like it can be a little bit of a slow burn, and that was not the case here. Back to Uma Thurman again, can we talk about the Negan bat? I wonder if they took that page directly out of the Walking Dead book. I don't really care either way. I love seeing Uma Thurman with weapons in her hand. The sword from Kill Bill. Oh, she's just so good. I do think it was smart to give us one of these big stars early on to really pique our interest in the serialized storyline we're gonna be seeing hopefully very soon. I love the visuals of the show, the open and closer, giving these dark comic book vibes. And in a way, I see Dexter as a comic book hero. He's a bad guy, but he's also a good guy because he's killing other bad guys who kill other people, right? So again, don't condone murder. I guess if you're gonna be killing people, you might as well be killing people who are doing the same thing to other people for the wrong reasons. Not that there's ever actually a right reason for murder. A little bit of cringy dialogue as well, even though this killer that Dexter is chasing is named the Dark Passenger Killer when he's like, oh, he stole my name. Come on, Dexter. You don't have it copyrighted. But not only is Dexter going after this other killer, he's also following Harrison to see what he's up to and discovers the crime that he committed. Another very convenient moment when he hears from the nurse at the clinic there's somebody in New York cutting up bodies in 9 pieces. And that immediately clicks for Dexter because that's how he taught Harrison 9 pieces. And what are the odds of another killer out there cutting up the bodies into 9 pieces? And really, that's like the one detail this nurse is going to share. Again, I get it. I will brush all of this aside for the sake of the pacing and momentum, but it was also just a little bit silly and convenient. Dexter also figures out exactly where Harrison is to propel him to go there. But too much Harrison table setting. He's really my least favorite part of the Dexter franchise as a whole. And is it bad that I kind of hope he doesn't survive season 1? Don't come at me. And I mean, even in the original Dexter, there was always this balance of Dexter doing what he does and balancing out his family and his personal life, his work life. So it makes sense that they do have the element of his son and a continuation of the story from New Blood, but for me, it's just a little bit too much of his son. Now back to Uma Thurman's character for a moment. She is breaking into other serial killers' homes, and in this case, she left a box with an invitation, which begs the question, how is Dexter going to end up getting involved? How is Uma Thurman going to invite him? Is this killer that he's tracking part of this serial killer network? And Dexter's going to successfully be able to follow him and figure out what's going on with Peter Dinklage's character. And by the way, as I mentioned, that cannot come fast enough. I want all of these big name serial killers on my screen right away. And just some questions I have. It does seem like there is a slow build for Dexter to potentially step back into this father role. Or it could go the other way and he continues to be a lone wolf. Or he steps into the father role and then they start killing together. Before I mentioned that perhaps there's a shift in Dexter's moral code, but for me, if he started killing people with Harrison, that would be a big shift in the wrong direction. He would be putting his son at risk. But it wouldn't be too far-fetched considering the Kurt Caldwell situation from New Blood. But at the same time, it's a generational thing like Harry did for him and guiding him, giving him the code. That could be the reason why Dexter and Harrison come together and potentially why Dexter and Harrison could kill together or Dexter just guides him along the way. Although it seems like he's already given him enough information. The way that Harrison was able to get the body out of there, cut it up, dispose of it. Obviously, it didn't work out because a leg came out of a trash bag. And another convenient thing, the hotel just doesn't happen to have cameras in the right spots to pick up what happened. Really lucky break for Harrison. And he did a pretty good job, minus that speck of blood in the kitchen ceiling. And with Dexter walking all around the hotel like that again, I mean, he's just gonna get in the kitchen and figure it all out as to what Harrison did and where he did it. Dexter's a smart guy, don't get me wrong. But I did notice throughout these 2 episodes, a lot of things did feel a little bit too convenient. But if we are able to just suspend disbelief, let that all go, realize that yes, Dexter survived this coma, miraculously is resurrected, made it to New York, figured out exactly where his son is and what he's doing, and is immediately able to get on the heels of a serial killer, okay, fine. I think it's really important that we do push that aside because otherwise it'll always be something in the back of our heads that's like, do we believe this? Do we not? But I don't know if it really matters. I mean, hey, the Dexter franchise is huge. They keep giving us spin-offs and sequels. We've got the Trinity Killer one coming. I speculated that perhaps we could see a Brian Moser prequel at some point to see what happened to him after he was adopted and what got him into being the ice truck killer. This season, we will probably see a lot of Dexter wavering between being a father and a monster and exactly how he's going to handle the Harrison situation as a whole. Since we've already heard the word resurrection twice, that seems like another ongoing theme that will be woven throughout this first season, when I assume we'll get a second season. Original Sin already has a second season, so why wouldn't this one get it? I'm also really curious exactly when Harrison and Dexter end up reuniting and how that reunion is going to go. Harrison already knows Dexter is there. Dexter obviously knows that Harrison is there, so it's only a matter of time, I would imagine. So I do hope we're kind of over all of these convenient coincidences, and now that we have the table set, we can actually move forward and just get to the killing, right? Really though, it's so nice to have Dexter back on our screens as the Dexter we know and love from the original series, because Dexter wasn't quite Dexter in New Blood, and one of the things that captured my heart about this series in the first place was Dexter's vigilante justice, the way he stalked, the blood slides, and balancing this life of being a serial killer and also trying to maintain a semblance of friendships, relationships, in this case being a father. And should the show get a couple more seasons, is there a possibility that Dexter ends up killing Angel, who is very clearly suspicious of what he's doing? Is Angel also going to show up and work with this other detective? He did that in New Blood, and it does not seem like he is backing down at all, and really, who could blame him? David Zayas, great by the way, he also has appeared in The Bear alongside his real-life wife, and I just enjoy him as a character. And I've also got to say, the actor who played young Angel in Original Sin could not have nailed that better, from the hat to the mannerisms, every single thing about him. Overall, the casting throughout all of these Dexter franchise shows have really been top notch. I'm also intrigued by the letter that Harrison found that Dexter had written to Hannah. And will we see a ghost Hannah at some point? Again, I know Yvonne Strahovski, she's very busy, but I loved her character. Could she revisit Dexter maybe in a dream or as a ghost? The show's obviously not afraid to do ghosts. We've got Harry, we've got Deb, we had Dokes, we had Miguel Prado, we had the Trinity Killer. What's one more ghost cameo, right? Even if it seems a little bit overdone, the throwback and nostalgia to OG Dexter is kind of fun. And in terms of the momentum, it is nice that Dexter is already tracking a killer, this dark passenger killer who actually saws off people's heads. Because the killing and stalking is such an important part of Dexter, could not be happier that they've given us that so early on instead of the slow buildup and waiting to get to this network of serial killers. Nope, dark passenger's already in the house. And what's interesting about that is the first time we saw that character getting into one of the ride shares, he's wearing the hood. He sort of has a similar profile to Michael C. Hall, so I was actually thinking it was going to be Dexter, but no, it was not. And now, Dexter is going to be posing as a rideshare driver in order to entice this killer to get in his car. Where is Dexter going to set up his kill room? Is it in this new apartment he has? Again, very convenient. Will he kill him in the next episode, or are we going to have to wait a couple of episodes? I want to see somebody on Dexter Morgan's table right now. And just pointing out one of the songs in this episode, Red Right Hand by Nick Cave was a song played during one of Uma Thurman's scenes. I just love that song, and I think it was very fitting. I always appreciate when they have a strong song choice in these TV shows. And if we get more solid needle drops, I will of course point them out. So moving into episode 3, my biggest questions. Is Harrison going to be formally suspected in this murder? Is Dexter going to successfully kill the dark passenger killer? And also, this colleague whose child that Harrison is babysitting, if it's only been 10 weeks or less since Harrison's arrived in New York, does anybody else think, like, why is this woman having this kid watching my son? I've always leaned very much on this side of caution when it comes to anybody looking after my children, especially when they were younger. But I'm thinking this is going to end up being part of the storyline, right? Is she going to catch Harrison doing something or see him doing something and get suspicious? How is the son going into play? Could it be like a hostage situation? I'm not sure, but I don't think that they would introduce that storyline if it wasn't going to play some kind of a part. I think that watch is something that could potentially get Harrison in trouble. Of course, his victim ended up giving it to him to go and get it fixed. And I also do keep wavering between this question of, is Dexter going to continue having these proud dad moments, end up embracing them, and work as a team with his son killing people? Will he mentor him like Harry and give him his own code so he can sort of do his own thing? Or is it possible Dexter could talk him out of doing it completely? The latter, I'm not sure of, because again, Dexter always had Harry to guide him, and this is just carrying on that trend for the next generation. But please Give me a little less Harrison moving forward. Okay, we know he's there, we know he's killing. I'm sure we're gonna have to learn more about this investigation, but I wouldn't mind if there was just a little bit more focus on Dexter. Because you know what? That's the name of the show. Are they setting up for a Harrison spinoff? I'll tell you, if they do, probably not gonna watch that one. Nothing against the actor who plays Harrison, but he's just been one of my least favorite parts of all of this Dexter-verse just as a whole. So, what did everybody think of these first 2 episodes? Drop a comment, let me know all your thoughts, and I'm gonna be here every week with a review video. I'm also covering some other TV shows, including The Buccaneers on Apple TV Plus. I'm doing 3 videos a week on that show. The Institute's going to be dropping on MGM Plus on July 13th, so I'll be here for that. And then this summer, I Turned Pretty on Prime Video, dropping its 3rd and final season on July 16th. So please go ahead, like this video, hit that subscribe button, and I hope you stick with me for all the TV talk this summer and beyond. I really appreciate you tuning in. I am on a journey to become a full-time TV content creator, and every single time you subscribe or watch or drop a comment, it really helps me get there a little bit faster. So appreciate you being here, and I will be back again very soon. Media Melanie, clicking off.